So it doesn't look good for physical gaming. We've spoken about it numerous times on this channel and on the main channel. Obviously, as we know, 2028, Sony will be stopping selling games physically, selling games on a disc. Everything will be digital. And we assume that the PS6 will be an all digital console, or it may come with a disc drive to play your PS5 games, but it will be an all digital console pretty much, because then games from 2028, new games, won't have a physical release. Now, there has been a report, which again, I get a bit dubious when I see some of these reports, because as we know, they like to account for microtransactions as digital sales. They like to account for games that are only sold digitally to their digital sales and then compare them to physical and then make out that everyone prefers digital. But personally, I would assume that players need a choice. So this article here says sales data paints a very grim picture for physical games in the USA and the UK. Just 7 PS5 games sold over 100,000 boxed copies. Now, I don't really know what to think of this, but let's give this a read. If a game sold just 1,000 box copies in the UK last week, it would already be the 9th best-selling title. Last week, Pokemon Legends ZA was in the position while the new Star Fox remake was 10th. This provides us with a touch more context about how well evenly a newly released Switch 2 exclusive performed. It managed to shift 1,000 copies or less last week in the UK's physical market. So Matt Piscatella said here, 2 PlayStation video games sold more than 10,000 physical units in the US during week ending July 11th. 7 have sold more than 100,000 physical units year to date. So this doesn't paint a good picture at all, because it says here, Piscatella doesn't confirm what PS5 games have sold more than the stated 100,000, but you have to imagine some of the biggest releases like Resident Evil Requiem, Crimson Desert, and 007 First Light. Sales of video games have shifted more and more in favor of digital, leaving physical boxes behind to create as much as a 85% swing in favor of the PS Store. Now, this doesn't look good at all, but it goes on to say, obviously, we know Sony is ditching discs to adapt to consumer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. I would disagree with this because, first of all, like I said, they take into consideration microtransactions, games that release only digitally. And as we know from that Insomniac leak, I know that was quite a few years ago, but it still showed that majority, if not all, of PlayStation's exclusive games sold better physically. And now you can say what you want to me. You can say, listen, you need to get over it because this is the way the industry is going to go. But I would argue the fact that even if this is the case, what Sony is going to do, we still need to talk about this and we still need to fight this, because when you look at the all digital future, they're not adapting to consumer trends. They're adapting because they just want to make more money. They get to control the pricing. They get to control where people buy their games, and they will rip everyone off. So whether you buy physical, whether you buy digital only, you are still going to get ripped off. And there's so many questions to be made when it comes to this all digital future. I personally think they will regret this, whether it's now or whether it's in a few years when the time comes, because when you look at games like Call of Duty, the new Black Ops 1, well, I say the Black Ops 1 and 2 that got ported over to current gen, I didn't buy them because I feel like just leaving them there in the older generation. As you know, it actually sold pretty well. People turned up and they are the bare bones. It doesn't come with DLC. They haven't updated anything. It's just literally a cheap port and people were all over it. Now, that's not to say, oh gosh, you shouldn't have bought it. Of course not. They like to use nostalgia as a way of bigging up their numbers personally, because once you use nostalgia or you use a popular game like GTA 6. Obviously, GTA 6 is going to sell millions. I currently don't know what I'm doing with that game because I did cancel my pre-order. But again, I want to play that game so much that the only place to play it and the only way to play it will be to buy it digitally, whether it's a code in a box or straight off the PlayStation Store. And I think the question isn't that, okay, we know digital is on the rise. We know that. But the point is, the bigger question is, it's not about convincing everyone that this is the way they're going to go. I think we should continue fighting. The question that we need to be making, and the feedback that Sony need to address, is ownership. Is what do you do with refunds? What do you do if your account gets hacked? What if someone actually dies what do you do? Can you pass on that account? I assume you can. What do you do about that? Can you pass on my account to my son, to my kids? You can't sell these digital games. Is that something they're going to address, where you can actually sell your digital games on a digital market? Can you buy games digitally for friends? Like, I know Nintendo are doing the whole where you can basically lend a digital game to your friend and you can choose how long, I believe, but they haven't addressed any of these massive concerns when it comes to their platform. And the obvious one, I said it was ownership, is licensing. How do you know that they're not going to cancel these games for a few years down the line and you've paid 70, 80, 90, £100, even more maybe with microtransactions, and that's it, you've lost your money? And that's the one thing I don't agree, because even with this article here, when you look at how many consoles have approximately sold in the US, 50 to 55% of the PlayStation 5 consoles sold in the US are physical disc compatible editions. Now, this tells me as well, you can say what you want whether, the PlayStation 5 has been out for so long that most people did opt for physical, but that still tells me that 50 to 55% of people were buying the physical edition because it made sense. Because again, we like to go on about this whole digital future, but the fact of the matter is that most people will buy both. Most people, even if you predominantly buy digital, I know people that will then go to CX, and I like to go CX and find some deals for some older games that I haven't bought and I want to buy. And I'm thinking, you know what, I can get this for £15. So my point is, there's a lot of people that just want the choice, but also that buy both. And if you have a look at these comments here, you can kind of see that people are just saying textbook definition of loud minority. I still think, like, you can't really say it's a loud minority, because this has actually gone into politics, into governments have been speaking about this. So many people have been talking about this. Over 300 signatures from that petition. And if you have a look at here, over 336,000 signatures have been signed, and including mine, Save Physical Games, because you can't say it's a minority. It's definitely not a minority. The issue is, and people want to kind of just go away from the situation, this is bad for everyone. This is absolutely bad for everyone. And I think every day that goes by, it just gets worse and worse with Sony, because there are still people pushing back on this. And I know this is so early. This is so early with this. And we have to just keep continuing to keep pushing. Because even though it's saying that, that hardly any sales are made physical, I beg to differ. Now, I would love to see, and I really hope, just finishing off this video, Wolverine is coming out soon. I want to know the physical sales to digital sales. And I kid you not, I bet you, no matter what the sales are for Wolverine physical, I know for a fact that that game is going to sell much more physical. That game is going to outsell in numerous countries, USA, UK. It's going to be physical. But the problem is, will Sony give us the numbers? Hopefully we get to see them, because I feel like in light of this, people have them realize how bad it's going to be to rely on Sony to, protect us when it comes to ownerships, hacking, because they're great at that, and basically giving us a good deal when it comes to these games when they're known for variable pricing, all of those things, lack of refunds. But I can't wait to see the sales of Wolverine. And I really just hope we do, because if there is a shift back, especially for Sony exclusives, maybe not for third party, but definitely for Sony exclusives, then that's another conversation we need to be had. So what do you think about this latest article about saying that 7 PS5 games sold over 100,000 in, I believe, in the USA and the UK? Do you think Sony will change their ways? Do you think they're going to say something? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know.